This is Eye on the Community, and I'm your host, Sean Anthony. And September is Infant Mortality Awareness Month. And today we're joined by CelebrateOne Executive Director, Ms. Maureen Stapleton, to discuss how we as a community can all do our part to ensure Black and Brown babies are alive and healthy from day one to year one and beyond. Director Stapleton has led organizations and agencies across the country. In her role as Executive Director of CelebrateOne, she, alongside her team, is leading the charge to reduce infant mortality and support moms, dads, and families in Central Ohio and beyond. I want to welcome to Eye on the Community, Director Stapleton. How are you today?
Thank you, Sean, for having us. I'm great.
Excellent. For our listeners in Columbus who may not be familiar with CelebrateOne and the life-saving services your organization provides to our community, tell us a little bit about the work you and your team do.
CelebrateOne was born out of a community engagement process in 2014. And from that community engagement process, a plan was put together to work with lead entities across the city to alleviate or reduce infant mortality. Columbus had a serious problem. The nation still continues to have a serious problem as it relates to Black and Brown babies. But this city came together and developed a backbone agency that would then work with key partners to address the things that we know cause infant mortality. We know that prematurity, as an example, is the number one way that we find babies don't get to the age of 1. So we work with our partners to make sure that as many babies get the things that cause prematurity taken care of so they can be okay. We know that safe sleep is important, and putting a baby down reduces sudden infant death syndrome. And so we work with partners to do that. And then we connect the disconnected. People who don't know how, once they're pregnant, to get to the doctor and what they're supposed to ask and how they're supposed to handle themselves. So those are the things that we and our lead entities work on every day.
September is Infant Mortality Awareness Month. And as you mentioned, there's an alarming statistic around that. And I've heard you share Black babies are dying at nearly 3 times the rate of white babies in Franklin County. Tell us why we should know about this and why this is such an important month.
Nationwide, September is Infant Mortality Awareness Month. October is Sudden Infant Death Awareness Month. This is the period of the year we're going into the winter months. There was a greatest number of babies dying. And so we, as a nation, decided to put some energy behind these months to get the information out to parents and why it's so important. CelebrateOne, as I said, was started in 2014, but we recently did a re-up of our strategic plan. And we are doubling down on equity, specifically health equity, as it relates to programming in the African-American community, in order to make the progress that we know needs to be made. It took 37 years for this nation to have white infant mortality and Black infant mortality be on the same level. So it took from 1980, Sean, to 2017 in order to get that equity. If we are not careful for that to happen again, it's going to take 62 years unless we do something different.
Wow.
62 years of babies dying at 3 times the rate in the African-American community. And so our new plan focuses squarely on health equity and doing equitable programs in the communities that are most affected by infant mortality, and that is the Black and Brown community. Will we continue to do programming with everybody? Absolutely, because we want our entire community to do well. But will we have an extra focus and extra programming and an eye on what's happening in the African-American community and ask the African-American community to engage differently? Yes, we're going to have to do that in order that this not to be 52, 62 years from now to see equity again.
That's interesting, Director Stapleton. You mentioned CelebrateOne's 5-year strategic plan to address infant mortality. What are some of the things you and your team are doing, and how can my listeners and viewers on social media, parents to be, families and friends, how can they join CelebrateOne in keeping this momentum going to reduce infant mortality?
So first, we have to recognize, talk about, not run from, not turn our heads away from the fact that this city and this county and its leadership have declared racism as a public health crisis. Taking all of the social determinant issues away, we still have educated African-American women, educated non-African American women who are having the same death rate in terms of infant mortality as those who don't necessarily fit that same category, right? And so what that says to us is that beyond the social determinants of health, there's something else that is causing an African-American, middle class, highly educated, master's degree female to still have the same, or to have similar birth outcomes as someone who is not African-American, who doesn't even have a high school diploma. So recognizing public and keeping the conversation going in our community is critical. And so I'm calling on community to lean in on this one and work with our city council and our Franklin County commissioners and our mayor on continuing to address and being real about the structural racism that we know exists in some of our health systems. I have to tell you, we are lucky. We have health systems that understand it, and they work with us every day.
That's good.
They're part of our lead entity. They're trying to do the best they can, and they're adding interventions to educate doctors, and adding additional training, adding cultural sensitivity. Even, Sean, something as simple as the way we use our hands when we communicate as Black folks,
right,
like I just did.
Right.
It could be off-putting to somebody who doesn't understand those kind of cultural nuances. And so it's important for our medical providers, our nurses, our doctors, our receptionists, who are often the first line of defense for a mom or a dad who's coming in with a prenatal or a baby issue, right? And so we have those partners, and we continue to work with them on developing those kinds of programs that make a difference.
That's
we
excellent.
also need to, we also need to make sure that we're clear that this is going to require intervention at a different level, an acceleration of the work that we do, and some innovation. We can't wait for 5 years to figure out whether something is statistically significant if we know it's helping in the African-American community. So we're going to be asking our community to help us do promising practices as well as proven practices in order to make the change.
That's excellent. You know, I wish that this cultural sensitivity training can go through all of corporate America, you know, from the top to the bottom, East Coast, West Coast, up north and down south. Reducing infant mortality isn't just a parent's responsibility. I mean, you know, the cliche saying, it's not cliche, it takes a village to raise a child. You know, the babies have siblings, grandparents, aunties, uncles, daycare workers, and more, who are all a part of that village. Talk to us about the importance of the village and what information and resources are available to equip them to adequately care for an infant.
So the first thing that we do, and we offer to church communities, large family groups, community-based organizations, is safe sleep training. You and I were lucky. We were born and we were put down in a crib on our stomachs with a blanket over us and our binky nearby. But we know now that those are the kinds of things that cause sudden infant death and babies to die before the age of 1. And so we train our community, not just the incoming parents or the new parents, but the aunties, the uncles, the cousins, the brothers, the sisters, the extended village and family also need to know when we hand that baby off to go out on a night on the town, or we hand that baby off to a trusted person so we can go to work, that baby will not have some complication in their sleep because we have done the wrong thing. And so we do a variety of work and activities with safe sleep, and with our centering partners. We have a variety of organizations, Moms to Be at Ohio State, Step One, which is a part of the Physicians Care Connection network of folks who, if you need a doctor, they can get you in. When you know you need to go. We need to continue to educate our community on just that. Many of the anomalies that cause infant mortality, Sean, happen in the first trimester.
Mm.
But so many of our women, about 30%, don't get to the doctor in the first trimester. When
Wow.
you know, no matter what's happening in your family life, you need to get to a doctor so that you can have the prenatal care that you need. And so we work with community-based organizations to get that word out. We work with organizations like Radio One and others to make sure that those messages are getting out. When you know, go. When you put a baby down, you put a baby down with alone on their back and in a crib or in an appropriate sleep environment. So we work with organizations to educate, but we also work with organizations to get that message out and do that work. And what we call those organizations are lead entities, like Step One, like Moms to Be, like Ohio Health and others that we fund to do work.
Director Stapleton, when it comes to caring for an infant, there's a lot of misconceptions about what to do. How do we begin to have a renewed mindset, shifting our mindset and unlearn some of the things that we were taught about caring for an infant?
Well, as I said, it starts with recognizing that we know a lot more, Sean, than we did when you and I were growing up.
Mhm.
We have seen the outcome of blankets and cribs. We've seen the outcome of a pacifier being connected to a string, just like the one I have on here, right? So that the pacifier doesn't get away from the baby, but then it ended up strangling the baby.
Mhm.
We've seen the outcome of a baby not being able to breathe because they're on their stomachs. And even though it's much more comfortable, you would think to sleep on your stomach, a baby's just fine on their back. It's important for us to continue to understand that we can't sleep in the bed with our little ones,
Mm.
right? Because we can roll over and crush them. And so the importance of a safe sleep plan, which our training gives parents, cousins, aunts, uncles, extended family, and friends, the information in order to make wiser choices. When a mom gets sleepy, she needs to understand what her safe sleep plan is. And that is, once you feel yourself nodding, you put that baby in a crib or in a safe environment. You don't fall asleep in the chair. You don't fall asleep on the bed. You put that baby where they need. So every family needs that plan, but you have to be educated to how to develop that plan. And we have resources, we have trainings, we have materials that we can give you. You can go on our website and see all sorts of videos and opportunities to learn how to put a baby down successfully. And that's what I think folks need to do. Avail themselves of our resources, call us for training and call us for help. If you don't have a crib, we can help you. If you don't have a safe sleep environment, we can give you a pack and play until you can get one. But we'd rather help you get through those hurdles and barriers than to not have what you need.
Since we've partnered up, and I also teach at the media school here locally, and I was telling one of my students who's a new mother, I was like, CelebrateOne has a lot of resources for you young new parents, and listeners may not know this, but you guys support new parents from pregnancy and beyond, even meeting with healthcare professionals at home, online, or wherever the parent is comfortable to help you prepare for a new baby, to support your toddler, and also a whole bunch of other family needs. Talk to my listeners a little bit more about that.
So it's interesting because we used to call that home visiting, and that was off-putting because people don't want folks in their home, especially during COVID.
Right.
So we rebranded that program a few years ago to Baby Bump and Beyond.
Okay.
We will be your parenting partner. We will meet you at the library. We will meet you at the Dairy Queen. We will meet you at the McDonald's. So in order to connect you to a nurse practitioner or someone who can help you navigate through your pregnancy, getting the questions and the answers that you need, but also the additional maternal health services in terms of watching your blood pressure, checking your diabetes if you have it, or any of the other kind of needs that moms have as they are going through the process, and dads need going through the process. This is not just about a mom, this is about a family. And a family doesn't have to be a traditional family, but home visiting, which we don't call it anymore, but being parent partners is part of our mission. And we have a variety of organizations that provide that baby bump and beyond experience. And we work with a parent before pregnancy, during pregnancy, and to the age of 1, and in some cases 3, in order to get that extra support. So if you're not feeling comfortable with your doctor's responses to you, if you have somebody who's a parenting partner that can walk you through that process, they can get you the answers you need. If there are items like a crib or a car seat or other needs that come up because of social determinants of health, adequate housing and those kinds of things, that's what a person in that kind of program is able to provide. So we have partners out there that are looking for folks every day that want some additional support. And you don't have to necessarily be somebody who's connected to a social service system in order to just need a little help.
Right.
Extra people who can be a babysitter, respite care when you need to just put the baby in a safe environment and get to to do something that you need to do for yourself personally, to de-stress and to be in the right mind frame when you're dealing with your baby. So that is what Baby Bump and Beyond does. And we're always looking for moms who are willing to have a parent partner on their journey, because we know that the models that are used to support Baby Bump and Beyond extend life and reduce infant mortality.
Excellent. You kind of hit on this a little earlier, from adequate housing to transportation or job access to quality healthcare. This issue of infant mortality connects to a much larger racial equity issue. How do we begin to address some of the systemic barriers that lead to infant mortality?
So I think the first thing we do is we recognize that in some cases, not all, there are social determinants of health that impact birth outcomes. As an example, we know that adequate housing gets us a baby that is not premature and can get to the age of 1. And so we work with a variety of partners to develop housing programs for pregnant women. We are actually developing a system right now that will address pregnant women separate from what we normally view as the community shelter board process, because what you do with a pregnant woman is different than what you would do with a family. We work with folks to make sure that they're connected to jobs, education, adequate health care. All of those things are the social determinants of health. As I said, we are working with our partners at the Ohio Better Birth Outcomes, that's our medical directors and our federally qualified health centers, to ensure that cultural competency and training is done so that doctors are not only aware of the health inequities or the opportunities to deal with the disparities, but they are actually implementing things that actually get to a better birth outcome for Black and brown babies. We had a woman who has done very, very well, had a situation where she was about to be put out. It was one of our partners, Physician Care Connection, stepped in, was able to get her adequate housing or stabilize her housing. She was getting ready to be put out and she was pregnant. And then we came in with a community health worker that helped that mom through. She is now working. She is now able to provide for her family. She was able to stabilize her housing because of her connection to CelebrateOne. And so she's one of our greatest advocates that we call on to do these kinds of interviews, because we can, while Patricia Perry may be one, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of women and men who have been able to benefit from our services and had a stronger relationship with their babies, and we're able to celebrate one because of the additional support that we provide. We also know that we can meet you where you are, but it's also important to get ahead of the game, right? We call that upstream programming. We in Columbus City Schools, we work with teens on teen reproductive health education, so they can make wise choices. If we move upstream and get that information into the hands of young people before they are sexually active, the outcomes are better, right? And so as in our new plan, as we deal with health equity, we're going to be moving upstream as well.
Director Stapleton, before we wrap up, I know that safe sleep is a major focus with CelebrateOne. For my listeners out there, can you walk us through and let us know what the ABCs of safe sleep is, and quickly break it down for us, especially for us men?
Yep. And I think I think what's important to note is that whether you are a woman or a man, whether you are the parent or someone who is a trusted member of the circle of that baby, there are three things that you should always do. You should always have a baby alone in wherever they're sleeping, and they should be sleeping alone, not with you. They should always be on their backs, because we know that that can lead to suffocation if they're not. And they should always be in an appropriate, safe sleep environment, which is a crib or a pack and play by themselves. No strings, no blankets, no all the other things. Oh, the baby's cold. Baby'd be just fine.
Yeah.
Put some pajamas on. But no matter what, have that safe sleep plan and discuss it with your family members, especially those trusted members of that baby circle who will be caring for that child. So many accidents happen that shouldn't happen just because we don't have that conversation. So we teach people how to have that conversation. In addition to doing it the right way, the ABCs, we teach people how to have that conversation. And we also train people and organizations to be safe sleep ambassadors, so that we know that there are people in the community that are telling others about how to do this. And we've been able to see some positive impacts as a result.
Excellent. This was very informative. I definitely appreciate your time with this. Real quick, can you let my listeners know how can someone support CelebrateOne in the pregnancy and parenting journey?
If you know someone who is pregnant, please get in touch with us. They can call us at 614-570-3592. They can also text that number with their name and their contact information, and we'll be back with them within 24 hours. If you want additional resources to share with your family, your friends, your groups, you can call that number as well, and we will help you. Or you can visit columbus.gov/celebrate-one. And it's easier just to type in CelebrateOne Columbus, and it will take you into where our page is, and there are resources available. We are urging community members to have us in virtually or in person. We'll do both, to have safe sleep ambassador trainings, especially in the neighborhoods where we know that there are some economic challenges and the infant mortality rate is higher. So we're really focusing in what we call our safe sleep neighborhoods, or excuse me, our CelebrateOne neighborhoods. But we become a safe sleeping ambassador and call us, and we'll come to you virtually or otherwise to do training. And then follow us on social media. We find that a lot of the folks who connect with us are connected with us through Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and even, believe it or not, LinkedIn has become a way for people to correspond with us. And then finally, we have started a podcast called Maternity. And if you want to get the tea on some really good things that you can do with your baby in order to keep them safe or have a successful pregnancy as a family, there's some nice little tips that you can learn from Maternity.
Excellent. Executive Director of CelebrateOne, Miss Maureen Stapleton, definitely appreciate your time. Thank you so much, and take care, okay?
Thank you. Thank you again, Sean.
Yeah, bye.